And we are back for another episode of Ronin's Den. I got with me, as always, the dragon and another friend of ours, the changeling from the Ronin's Den Discord server. Somebody who runs primarily Rifts games, Vampire the Masquerade over there with me. And tonight we're going to talk about a couple things, depending on how much time we have. One, would it be a good thing for all of these games, D&D, Pathfinder, to move to a more digital format, both for the acquisition of the materials and for playing the games? So think D&D Beyond, but that being the default. And if we have time, we're going to dip into the utilization of AI in the hobby as well, and if that's a good or a bad thing. Personally, I want to start it off with the virtual tabletop conversation and the things moving digitally. And I want to say I view it pretty much as an all around negative. All right. I think that it is the extinction level event for the local game stores and indie games as a whole. And there's a few reasons why I think it that way, but the big ones are, go into your local game store and look at what is being consumed and played when you go in. And there are three main things that keep your local game store open: Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, and Warhammer, along with all the paraphernalia that goes with those three games. So it's my personal belief, and I know this is just my own opinion and everything, but if Wizards of the Coast was to make a huge push to take all of their games digitally, and they're doing that right now with Magic the Gathering Arena, and it's being pretty successful. A lot of people are playing that wouldn't normally play. So if Magic goes digital, D&D goes digital, there's no more physical books being shipped to these stores, and the preferred way to play is a proprietary virtual tabletop that Wizards of the Coast owns and operates. And if Paizo and Games Workshop follow suit, without those three manufacturers' products going into the game stores, that's it. Game over. They're closing. And without also with those ones leaving the game stores closing, a lot of the smaller indie games are going to suffer. Places like Roll20, Forge, Owlbear, they're not going to be able to afford to keep the doors open, the lights on, if these manufacturers say we don't want you to host our stuff on there. We have our own proprietary thing. You can't have our products anymore. Or if you do, you need to pay us a high royalty. Those systems shut down, that's going to hurt the indie developers again. So personally, I think it's a bad thing. I think it's all around bad. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, change.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So the way I look at it is this. If you're going to go all the way to a digital platform, something like Magic the Gathering Arena, it's done a fantastic job with that. Magic the Gathering Arena is a fantastic game. It completely and totally emulates player versus player combat in Magic the Gathering. Like it's exactly the same as I'm sitting across the table playing against my best friend, right? Like I've had fantastic games of Arena. It's great. Now, um, I'll take that and I'm going to move it over to the role playing world, and then I'm going to tie it all together here in a few minutes. You bring it to the role playing side of things, it's different, right? When you have a, it's a term that I hate to use, a TTRPG. Um, that's one of the things about it. You're sitting around the table, right? So like you have that tactile experience. You're flipping through your books. You have your character sheet. You have your dice. You have your pencils. You have all that. It's much more than just having cards in a packet. But you're sitting around the table. You're talking to your friends. You're playing games. It's fantastic. It's so much fun. But at some point in time, it gets to be, this friend leaves, that friend leaves, the group splits apart. Well, if you're all digital, then the great thing is you guys can stay in contact, and I can play with you, even though I live in Texas, and my buddy lives over here in Washington, and I got another guy that's over here in the Pacific or in the Northeast. Like we're able to just get together and play regardless of what's going on, because we have these digital copies and we have these digital playgrounds to use. That's awesome. Now, I'm going to bring it over one more step. We're going to bring it into the wargaming side of things. Now, uh, Duality, Dragon, you guys maybe aren't so much into wargaming as I am. Right now, I'm currently painting up an Eldar army. I've painted tons of stuff. I had so many armies here and there. I've been playing Warhammer since 1997. Um, so there's a tactile experience there that goes above and beyond what you get with tabletop role playing games. You don't get the camaraderie like you get with tabletop role playing games. I meet people playing role playing games that I'm friends with my entire life. I run into people that I play Warhammer with, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's cool. I've seen you before. We've played games. It's awesome, great. But there, these different areas: Magic the Gathering, tabletop role playing, tabletop wargaming. They're completely separate. But you can play a tabletop war game just fine online, but it's not the same thing. You're not painting your models, which for some people is a plus. Um, you don't actually own these things, and I think that's where everything kind of ties together is the issue of ownership, right? So I have Magic the Gathering Arena. I haven't played it in a while. I uninstalled it. Do I still own the cards that I played? Yeah, sure I do. I have different games that I purchased online, Wicked Ones, some Palladium stuff that I have digital copies for. That's fantastic. I own the licenses for that. Warhammer, never touch any of that stuff. I know you can do some things on different tabletops here and there, but I've never really done any wargaming online. But one thing that stands out to me is I don't own these products, right? Like I have a license for them. So I believe was the issue with Marvel Ultimate Alliance when you no longer have that physical copy and you own the license, if they don't allow you to use that license, well, then you're screwed anyway. So digital is great. Getting things out there is fantastic. Being able to play with people across the country, across the world is amazing. But I digress. I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to let somebody else take over because I ran out of things to say.
So I don't think the problem is digital content. I don't have an issue that there are virtual tabletop games. I don't have an issue that there are Magic the Gathering Arena. But the problem is a big corporation like Wizards of the Coast that brings in billions of dollars is going to look at it and go, okay, how can we monetize this more? So right now, 5th edition, the books are out, right? You can't stop that. But 6th edition, maybe they go, you know what, we're not we're not going to print the books. We're going to create a service like D&D Beyond. You can only buy the books virtually on D&D Beyond. Okay, you can't use Roll20, which everybody uses. You can't go to Foundry, which you paid to have. You can't use what's the other big one? I can't remember.
Owlbear.
Whatever. What?
Owlbear.
Yeah, Owlbear. There are a bunch of virtual tabletops. What's stopping D&D, Wizards of the Coast, from saying none of you can have 6th edition? So, if you, D&D players, want to play D&D and have the books available to you, you have to pay for our virtual tabletop. Now, what's to stop them from saying, okay, in order to gain access to our monthly tabletop, you have to pay a monthly subscription? Now, also, with the push with microtransactions, what's stopping them from saying, okay, you pay $29.99, here's the base rules. You want the cleric class, that's $5.99. You want the fighter class, that's $5.99. You want the subclasses, oh, those are $2.99 each. That's the problem that I feel going completely digital could bring up. In a perfect world, going digital would be great. But in the world we live in, where big corporations care about cha-ching, cha-ching, what's stopping them from doing that?
Well,
And
they're
from what
already
I've
doing
seen
that.
from people who
D&D Beyond
they're
already
pretty
does it.
much with D&D Beyond, but you can get the physical copies that have everything right now. But
Right.
in a future edition, you might not be able to. which is why I'm worried about the digital
So
coming.
I look at it like this. Like right now, TTRPGs, you can get them anywhere. That's great. You can buy them at fucking Walmart if you want to. Some of them. Like I saw D&D books at Walmart. But it's the proprietary systems when it's like the Appleification. Like look at Apple as a company. They have their own special charging port. Like you could not just go get a charging port somewhere. What would that look like with D&D or Warhammer or Pathfinder? Well, yeah, you can't do anything like you were saying unless you go directly to the publisher. So your local game store is going to shut down. And I don't know. I mean, like, I don't get nostalgic to go to the game store to smell the unwashed ass of some basement dwelling virgin. Like, I don't miss that. But I do like to go there and see people who are playing games and figure out if this is the game that come on, you're laughing, but you've been to a local game store and the stank has hit you like a ton of bricks when you have walked through there at least once. At least once.
I'm mostly laughing at the fact that you said unwashed ass the minute Cannabella joined the show.
Yeah.
So the first thing she hears is unwashed ass. But anyway.
But, yeah, I mean, so there are things we're not going to exactly miss from the local game store, but there are a lot of things about those stores that I don't want to see them disappear. And I mean, let's take this a little bit further too. You have a company like Wizards who has a oops racism every 3 months, or they decide, hey, look, we're gonna take Volo's Guide of Monsters and Mordekian's whatever and Tome of Foes, and we're gonna combine them into one book called the Mordekian's Monsters of the Multiverse, and then we're gonna remove those two books that you might have bought out of circulation from our online digital store. So if you lose your download of those, you're screwed. You can't get those two books. We're not going to reimburse you. And you have to, at that point, repurchase those two books as the digital one book. Or with like the Spelljammer incident, where the Hadozi, which was wildly racist. Like I usually don't get triggered by shit like that, or I don't see it. Like somebody will say goblins are anti-Semitic. And it's like, D&D goblins, I don't see it so much. Harry Potter goblins? Fuck yeah, I see it there. But when when they go, okay, well, we fucked up with the Hadozi, and they just go in the back end and they edit it digitally. And let's face it, D&D players have the shortest goddamn fucking memory of every other TTRPG player, enthusiast, fanboy, because I don't even think that they're players at this point. They are zealous fanboys. You criticize their game and they lose their goddamn fucking mind. You remove those fuck-ups that Wizards does, and there's no recollection. There's no proof that Wizards did a thing. All you know is, well, you screwed up. You bought their product because why would you buy Wizards? Oh yeah, because they put out that picture that said pre-order Planescape now and get your 5 free character portraits, 4 backdrops, special set of digital dice to roll on our proprietary virtual tabletop. Oh, we totally did this fucked up thing that people aren't happy with. Let us just go in there, erase it, and edit it. And then when anybody says, you remember that thing? There's no proof. And there's that plausible deniability on the company's end. Of course, somebody's going to save something. There's these people that have, like, smokestacks full of Twitter posts going back to 1997 on some of these people. But you don't want to rely on that. You want an archive of the true progression of the books. And I just don't trust Wizards to be honest with their revisions on their history. I don't see it.
And there's also the issue that you do not own any digital product you have. So just because you paid for something digitally, if they decide, like next week they could shut down D&D Beyond. They won't, but they could. And they don't have to reimburse you for that. You lose all access to those books like you never owned them, and it's perfectly legal, which is another reason I'm scared of digital, because what happens when they decide, okay, 6th edition is over, we're going to 7th edition now, everything from 6th is shut off. It's done. You have to move to 7th.
Also, think of this too: is D&D, like this multi-billion-dollar company, are they going to be happy putting out a platform that's like Roll20 or Owlbear, which is pretty much just grid maps and tokens? Or are they going to want to do something with animated tokens, animated little things that you put on the map? Your character isn't a circle with an image, it's like a three-dimensionally created model, and when you cast fireball goes shooting from your model. I see them wanting to lean more into that because it would be more engaging. People would want it more because it's cooler. But now you're looking at how many people don't own really high speed internet access at home or have up to date computers that are going to be able to run these things. One of the best things about TTRPGs for me, like Dungeons and Dragons, Rifts, Fabula Ultima, I buy the book once. It sits on my shelf of awesomeness, and then I don't ever need to worry about updating my computer to play it. As long as my computer can run Discord, which is not that bad of a resource pig, I can play digitally online. Roll20 is not system intensive. Forge is not system intensive. What will be system intensive are these high resolution maps with high resolution animated figures that are put into them. And a multi-billion-dollar company isn't going to be happy just making a clone of the thing that a lot of people use begrudgingly. They're going to want to make something that's so much better that's going to pull the customers out of those free services and lock them into theirs. So it's going to remove accessibility from a lot of people.
Which ultimately, I don't have an issue with a tabletop like simulator or
Oh, neither do I.
a virtual tabletop that's going to do that kind of a cool thing. But I have an issue with it if they're going to make it so that's the only way. Like I said, why would they give Roll20 access to their books if their tabletop is there and they're going to want people to use their tabletop? It, like you said, it could lead to an issue where it's not accessible for everybody, which has honestly been kind of an issue in the tabletop role-playing game space. Accessibility is a huge issue.
Dude, Dungeons and Dragons is not terribly accessible to everybody. I mean, like, yeah, you can go and buy a $20 starter set, but when you're talking about like, yeah, I'm gonna spend $40 for a player's handbook and $40 for a GM's guide and $40 for a monsters manual, and then like I'm gonna go spend another $40 for a world setting. Like suddenly, like your super cheap hobby, which you of course went and bought the D&D dice, which cost you $20 at your local Walmart. They're available right there. Like all of a sudden, your cool hobby has become expensive. Like when you're getting into something like Warhammer, you're spending $1,000 so you can play the game. When you get into something
Yeah.
like D&D, you're like, oh man, dude, I just got to get this little starter set for $20, and I get to get me a pack of dice for 20. I'm in for $50 tops. Yeah, that's great, but that's not the way it's been. Like it's the the way that games have progressed have like in just price. And yeah, I understand like printing costs have gone up and yada yada yada. But when I'm looking at a copy of Vesson that cost me, $50 from Free League, and I'm looking at a copy of Riffs that cost me $24.99 from Palladium Books, like you at some point in time you have to say, okay, this goes back to to the people that produce this book. This goes back to the publisher. This goes back to Wizards of the Coast. This goes to Hasbro. This goes to Free League. This goes to Palladium. This goes to Renegade Games. Like these people are milking folks for every dime they have for this little hobby. And I think one of the things that really people forget is that you don't need all of these books for most games. Like
No.
you can go buy Vampire the Masquerade, right? It costs you $50 for the main book. That's expensive, but you have everything you need to play. You don't need the Sabbat book. You don't need the Camarillo book. You don't need the Anarch book. It's cool flavor, but you don't need them. Like, you go over to Palladium, right? You buy Rift's Ultimate Edition. It's going to cost you $30 probably. There's a lot of really good information there, but you have all the bad guys you could ever want just in the Coalition. You go to Dungeons and Dragons, right? You're going to the big boys. You're going to Hasbro. I mean, Wizards of the Coast. I'm sorry. No, it's Hasbro.
It's Hasbro.
You buy the Player's Handbook.
Hasbro.
That's $50, $40, whatever. Then you buy the Game Master's Guide, same price. Then you buy the Monsters Made of Bestiary, whatever they call it these days, same price. And then you're like, man, I have all of this cool stuff, but what do I do with it? Let me turn it over to these other settings. So no, it's
D&D
not
is one of the
going
more
digital.
expensive
It's
ones.
not. It's well, the gaming companies have recently, like the big ones, they've made a mistake. Games Workshop tried to do this years ago, and they're still trying to push the same thing. They're like, hey man, we are a luxury market because you don't need our product, you want our product, so it's a luxury to have. So Games Workshop, like you go buy a 5-man squad of Dark Reapers, it costs you $60. I mean, we're talking like an inch and a half of plastic per dude. So you've got 5 little guys that stand an inch and a half tall, cost you $60, and they're made out of freaking plastic because it's a luxury product.
Oh, and that's the other thing
Like,
too, right?
come on, bro.
So it's a luxury product. You don't need it, but in costs going up, with the physical books, it costs more to print them. But do we ever see those cost savings pushed back to the consumer? Look at the digital games on your Xbox store, your PlayStation store. They cost just as much, if not more, sometimes than buying the physical copy of the game. Like when I wanted to get Armored Core
Exactly.
6, just for the base model, it was the same cost as going to any store that sells the game and buying the physical game. But I don't own the game when I get the digital one. I'm not paying for a physical product. They didn't have to manufacture it, ship it, put it on the shelves. The retailer didn't have to do anything. I sat on my couch and downloaded it. You think that would be worth a $10 fucking discount? It's the same annoying thing that goes through when you go to a store and you're like, self-checkout lane. I got to do all my shopping on my own, check out all my fucking groceries. They fired the people that they would normally pay to do that, but I'm still spending more money and they're not passing any fucking savings on to me. It's going to fucking the CEO who's sitting on their yacht in a golden toilet somewhere in the middle of international waters. It just sucks. Like I'm not a fan of pushing these things digitally. I do like the universal anybody can use them systems, but the idea of a proprietary one bugs the shit out of me. It really does. Oh, by the way, the show's not for children.
Werewolf 5th edition. Werewolf 5th edition. What were you saying, Changeling?
Yeah.
Oh no, it was kind of just like harping on the same thing, griping and everything, right? So I spent $60, $59.99 for the 5th edition. You can get a digital copy for $40, but like you don't own said digital copy. Like I'm right here, like I can read it in my bed. If I had the digital copy, I could do that. But like they put this huge thing. You get the pre-order, and guess what? You get this digital copy for free. So I got the digital copy. That's great. Like I can look at it on my if I want to. But if I go to use this on a tabletop, like say you like Roll20 or something like that, if I don't own it, I can't export it or upload it to that server. So I have to buy it again. I've got to do this and that and the other just to make sure that people have access to the book that I've already bought. So I'm just kind of on the same side as you on this one, Duality, is like when you buy the physical copy, you own it. But here we're just spending more money and more money and money for less product and less product and less product. So yeah, you can buy everything you want all day, every day. But you end up with so much less in your life, which is why, once again, I'm gonna go back to Rips and Palladium books and just say, look, man, you can go buy this game for $30. and you can get all their source books for 20, and it's been the same thing since like 1990. Well,
I mean, yeah, I also don't like the fact that Wizards of the Coast is the most expensive. And if you look at the quality of their product, it's probably the poorest. So Wizards of the Coast has always made their stuff more expensive and more expensive. You get less quality from it. I'm worried they go digital and do, like I said, the microtransaction thing where, oh, you want the fighter? Oh, you have to pay more for the fighter. Oh, you want this class? Oh, you have to pay more for that. But then they make the quality even less because it's not going to be printed. They can just put whatever the fuck they want. And like you said, Wizards of the Coast D&D people are like sheep. They forget everything Wizards of the Coast does. Wizards of the Coast does something stupid and they gripe about it for a week, then a week later they're playing D&D again. It's just, or they're buying Wizards of the Coast products. Like, I won't buy anything from Wizards of the Coast. If it has WotC on it, I don't buy it because they're a shitty company. And then you mentioned Arena, Changeling. The problem with Arena is not that it exists. I like Arena. It gives you the ability to play with friends, like you said, from across the world. The problem I have with it is that eventually, you know it's going to happen. Wizards of the Coast is going to go, look how much it costs to print all these cards. Look how much it is to package and ship all these cards. Fuck that. We're not going to do that anymore. If you want to play, you have to play on Arena. That's the only way you can get the new cards. And like Duality said, that's going to be a local game store killer. My game store in Meadville lives and dies by Magic the Gathering. If it didn't have Magic the Gathering, they'd be out of business. And it's a fact. And I feel like Wizards of the Coast would get to that point where it's like you said, every materials are getting more expensive. Shipping's getting more expensive. How long before they go, it's not worth it? When these fuckers will pay for it digitally.
yeah, no, I mean you're absolutely right on that one. Um, I mean, I'm here in Corpus Christi, Texas, and we have like this is like a gaming dead zone from like here to San Antonio up to Houston. There's nothing, right? Um, so like yeah, Magic Gathering Arena is fantastic for me. Um, because otherwise, like I've got to drive, into Corpus or I have to go to San Antonio. There's nothing in between to actually play a game. Like there are no small towns that have anything around here, and that's part of the major problem. Is when these stores have just been completely and totally priced out. It's impossible for them to turn a profit because you have the bigger companies that are exceedingly greedy with their physical product. They're like, oh, hey, yeah, I'm going to give you 10% of the cut. People aren't going to want to stock that. There was this little store that I used to shop at back in Gainesville, Florida, called the Traveling Mage. And this dude was awesome. Like you go and you buy a subscription, you get 10% off on everything you bought in the store. But he carried a ton of GW products, so a lot of Games Workshop stuff. This is back in the day. I was playing Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Necromunda was hot. Like we were playing a lot of those tabletop war games. And Games Workshop may or may not have been involved in some shenanigans related to the Mordheim game. And the store may or may not have received its uh, allotment. And so, like, the dude was basically left holding the bag. Like, he put out all this money to get something for a super expensive product. And then when he finally did get the limited amount of products that he was supposed to get, like, he was supposed to get much more. But when he finally did, he wasn't allowed to sell it at the rate that he was used to selling it. Dude ended up folding and going out of people. Like, people look at friendly local gaming stores, and all right, well, these guys are a small business. They're making money, but they're not. Like, most of the time, they show up to the shop every single day. You see the same guy working the counter because they can't hire people. They don't have the money. Like, these aren't multi-million dollar companies. This is the guy that lives in the broken down house down the street that's running the store, and he does it because he loves it. So yes, 100%. When you go all the way digital, you're cutting these guys out, and you're really screwing them over. But the writing is kind of on the wall that, hey, look, Magic the Gathering is dying on the physical level. It's going to be put, to a digital only thing. So most likely the Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, we've got one D&D coming up, and one D&D is going to be the next thing for Dungeons and Dragons. It's solely digital. So what are you left to do, man? Like, you can't just rely on the same companies to provide bread and butter. At some point in time, you have to cut them out and be like, "Yo, man, you guys are Mercedes here, and I'm not a Mercedes dealer. Um, I've got some freaking bomb ass Toyotas over that you would love." And I think that's what it is. They need a paradigm shift, not necessarily the companies using these games, but in the people that are purchasing the games. People need to wake up and see these companies going to their local establishment and just say, you know what, D&D is a game. It's not the best role playing game ever. Fuck, it is no near the best game that's ever been made. It's just a game. I've got these guys over here. This dude that makes basic fantasy gives his game away for free. But you can buy it if you want to. If you want
Mm-hmm.
to buy a physical copy, you've got Palladium. They haven't changed their prices in forever. You've got people everywhere that are just putting these things out, but nobody looks at them because everybody's stuck on the dick of Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, we talk about how people should be playing other games a lot.
Not even that they should be, but you at least look at them.
Yeah.
Like you said, there are so many table. I would say there are thousands to tens of thousands of TTRPGs, if not more, out there that you can play, and a lot of them you can get for free, for next to nothing, and they're infinitely better than D&D, in my opinion. I don't understand this mentality that the Wizards of the Coast D&D fan boys and girls have for D&D. Like, it's a blind loyalty to this one system. And then they'll make statements like, I don't have time to learn a new system. 90% of the other systems you can learn in 5 minutes. Mork Borg is on one page. I can teach you how to play. Like, Call of Cthulhu is even a little bit crunchier than most. I taught Duality and the guys I'm playing with how to play it in 5 minutes.
Yep.
There are a lot of simple games out there.
I mean, I've taught people riffs, and Palladium games are a little on the crunchy side, a little on the intimidating when you look at them. But I've taught people how to play that game in like 15 minutes.
D&D is an extremely complicated system, an extremely expensive system, and you get people that go, oh, I don't have the time or the money to learn a new system. The only reason you think that is because you've been brainwashed by Wizards of the Coast to think this is normal.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah. And so...
Fuck the corporal. I'm out.
Stockholm Syndrome, I swear. Now, something that's kind of like I want to say it goes hand in hand. Oh, we lost Changeling. Something that goes...
Yeah, he said he was out.
Okay.
He had to leave.
One of the other things that goes along with this virtual tabletop push, and I mean, it's a bit of a hot button topic for some people, but it's AI and its implementation in the games. I see its use going up a lot if they push toward a virtual tabletop system. And like digital books, they're just a thing, right? They're not going away. I think they're going to try and make those more appetizing to people to purchase. I see D&D Beyond like subscriptions where you get discounts on books, and you don't even have to buy the book. You can just get the subclass and the bits and the pieces from it. But we all know how Wizards products go downhill over time, and other companies are kind of getting on there where they're using more and more AI artwork, or they're using AI to write big sections of their book.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like this is one where it's like I don't know if a half hour to an hour is long enough to talk about that, but I'm also not a huge fan of it.
I think we're gonna save that conversation for another time because we lost Changeling. I think we all got the points across that we wanted to get across for digital.
Yeah.
Like Changeling said, I see merit to there being digital options. I have no issue with Roll20 existing. I have no problem with digital copies of books existing. I have no problem with Magic the Gathering Arena.
No, none.
I am only worried about the inevitable next step, which is the elimination of physical, and you're strictly on digital. And then they've got you by the short and curlies, and they can do whatever they want, and there's nothing you can say about it. Like you said, you have your shelf of awesome. They can never take that away from you.
Nope.
That is always going to be there. You can always play those games, and no one can ever tell you, no, you cannot. Now, digital, you could log in tomorrow, and everything's gone, and that's where I worry.
Yeah, the Netflixification of tabletop games. I don't want to see tabletop games turn into Netflix.
Yeah, where for 2 months you have this available and then you don't.
Well, I mean, I know we're trying to wrap this up here, but like the last point I'll make on that, since Netflix was brought up, look at back in the day when you had Netflix. It was just one thing. You could get DVDs mailed to you, or you could stream everything right there now. Now we have Peacock, Amazon Video, the NBC one, Fox's one, HBO. Like every channel out there has a streaming service, and they've yanked all their products, at least the good ones, behind their personal paywalls. So if I want to watch one show from NBC because they have one show I want to watch, well, I got to get their whole goddamn streaming service now. Whereas back in the day, I could just use Netflix. And that is the difference between having things like Owlbear and Roll20 and the generic systems out there that let you play all of these games versus the proprietary system run by Wizards or Paizo or Games Workshop. They might let you use some of the products elsewhere, but I have a strong feeling when it gets to that point, they're going to pull the moneymakers behind their own paywall and not let you get to it.
Absolutely. And in my final thoughts for the Netflix and the paywall of media, yo ho, Pirates life for me.
Raise the colors.
That's how it's going to be with with tabletop role playing games too if they put it behind paywalls.
Yeah.
Outside of like me being able to buy the book, I'm not going to say it like out loud, but you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yes, raise the colors.
Put a pirate flag. There you go. Yep. But anyway, I think we got the point across that
I think we did.
We think it's a bad idea. I think even Changeling kind of came around to where he's like, okay, I see where you guys are coming from, even though he likes the digital stuff, which, once again, I'm not knocking digital. I just don't want it to get to that negative. But anyway, that's it.
That's it on my end as well. So thanks for stopping by Ronin's Den for this fun little conversation about things moving to the digital world and why that's not necessarily a good thing. We'll be back again next week with another fun topic. Maybe it'll be AI. Maybe it won't. I know pretty soon we're going to be talking to... What's next week? Next week's Kralis?
Next week is next week is the round table about what tabletop role-playing games mean to you.
Yes. That's going to be a really fun
And we have like
conversation.
6 people. It's going to be a really good one.
Yep. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to pull this stream to an end. I'm going to get this episode uploaded as quickly as possible for everybody. And we will catch you next time, next week, same time and place in Ronin's Den.